Something big is brewing as a former top Islanders prospect has revealed they intend to return to the NHL from the KHL. We're going to discuss what this means for the Islanders and also talk about a couple other former top prospects for this team who are all still in the system but have kind of been replaced by the new names, just Schaefer, Eklund, Aitchison, Cole Yzerman, Callum Ritchie. All these players have kind of pushed these players down the depth chart, and while they're no longer some of the Islanders' top prospects, I think it's worth noting where these players are at in their development, because some of them might potentially be close to playing NHL games soon, while others might never make it to that level. Really quickly, before we talk about this, we are on the road to 2,000 subscribers. Appreciate all of you who've already subscribed to the channel. If you're an Islander fan, you want more Islanders content just like this, what are you waiting for? Be sure to subscribe if you have not already. Now let's get into talking about Ruslan Iskhakov. This is a player who, when he was drafted, I was very excited about. As you might remember, the same year that Noah Dobson and Oliver Wahlstrom were selected in the first round, Iskhakov was the Islanders' second round pick. And this is a player who has shown a lot of potential at points, but has only played one game. He played one game for the Islanders in the regular season. And I believe he also got into a playoff game. I'm not sure if he really played in that playoff game, but I know he was on the roster for the playoffs that year when the Islanders played the Carolina Hurricanes. Did not go well, as we all know. But Shakov is a really interesting player. I think we all expected after he played in the playoffs that season, that last season, prior year, he would be in the Islanders and at least get his chance to make the team. But that was not the case, as he left to go to the KHL. And I've noted earlier, like, before this channel really got its momentum, it was a small audience, I noted that a lot of people were hating on Lou Lamoriello for his issues with Shakov, and I argued that this was not an issue for the Islanders just because the Islanders retain the rights to this player. And that is the case. If Shakov wants to return to the NHL, which it appears is his plan, not this season, but next season, well, then he has to go through the Islanders, because the Islanders hold on to his rights until 27. And this is a player who, it might be valuable to hold on to this player's right. This is a player who can turn into something, as we're going to talk about in just 1 second. Currently, he's still playing in the KHL. That's going to be the case for next season. But after that, if he wants to return to the NHL, he's going to have to do it through the Islanders, whether he wants to play for the Islanders or if the Islanders trade his rights to another team. And depending on what he does in the KHL this season, the Islanders could likely get a return for Iskhakov. They drafted him in the second round back that year, where I told you about. And since then, it's been mixed results. In college, he's had a decent amount of success, honestly. The points don't quite show it, but this is a player who has a lot of skill. And one issue he suffered from in college was struggling to overcome his small size, which, as you're probably seeing, Ruslan Shakov is 5'7", and that's been the biggest obstacle, in my opinion, in keeping him from being an effective NHL player. He's accomplished a lot in other levels, but the NHL is a struggle. Back in college, his size was a struggle as well. He actually suffered a really nasty injury, getting a bad concussion, but he's bounced back significantly. In fact, in 2 AHL seasons with the Bridgeport Islanders, he got 51 points, and then 51 points in his first season in Bridgeport, and then 50 points in the second season, which for AHL, especially considering how bad the Bridgeport Islanders have been, them being terrible was not just a last season thing. They've been a rough team for a long time. So for Shakov to put up these numbers in the AHL, this is very impressive. And so yeah, he did play one game in the playoffs for the Islanders. I wasn't sure if he just made the roster or he played. Didn't have an impact in that game. Did have one assist, though, in his last game of the season when he played, I believe, against the Penguins. Had an assist in that game. Remember that game. Really interesting player. I don't quite know what Ruslan Ishakov's future looks like in terms of an NHL player. He really struggled, I think, with the size aspects. And although he did show up in the AHL, I wonder if the NHL would have been too much. And now, you might be wondering why I say this for a player like Iskhakov, while I'm super high on a player like Shabanov. And the big difference there is I just think the way that Shabanov uses his small size to his advantage and really the way he's elusive with the puck kind of makes it so I think that he can translate to the NHL, where I'm not so sure with Iskhakov. And at points, he has shown some flashy moments. He's had some of the best stick handling I've seen in a shootout. It's not always there when he plays. He seems to really do better in games when he is playing 4-on-4 and 3-on-3, or something like that, as opposed to playing full or the power play, that type of thing, as opposed to playing 5-on-5. That is an area he has struggled a lot. And in the KHL, a league where there is physicality, I think there is a misunderstanding on how KHL hockey is played. It's not nearly as physical as the NHL, but this idea that you don't get hit in the KHL is certainly not the case. They have guys who are out there getting paid to just bruise people. Like, that's their role. Like, that exists in the KHL, whole men's league, the second best league, I believe, in the entire world. He played all right. He put up 30 points in 29 points in 60 games. So there's definitely is a interesting player in Iskhakov. The question really is, what can he amount to in the NHL? I do think if this player does have a really good season, at the very least, he could become a valuable trade piece for the Islanders. I can't see them moving players to give Iskhakov a chance, especially now that Lou Lamoriello is no longer the general manager. But this is a player who, especially considering last season was his first year in the KHL, I can see him taking a step up next season, especially considering that he looked really good at points and seemed to really figure stuff out as the year went on. This is a player who, if he puts up, say, this year he put up 30, if he puts up, say, like 45 points or something in 60 games in the KHL, you can get some solid value from a team who wants to take a chance on Iskhakov. Don't know if you're going to get the second round pick that you got him for, but you never know, especially depending on what he does next season. This is a really interesting story to keep eyes on. Also, a chance that Iskhakov is willing to play another season in Bridgeport and try to work his way onto the Islanders, which is something I think that would be really exciting. I think this is a player, again, looking at the way he played in Bridgeport, I think there definitely is potential with Iskhakov. He is getting a bit older when it comes to his age, but this is a player I do want to note. Sometimes age is not everything. He seemed to take a little longer to figure out how to use his frame, considering he's a smaller player. If you kind of look at his stats throughout the years, he's shown progression going from really in 2020 and 2022, really playing in different leagues, trying to figure out a role before really taking a step. If you actually take a good look at his numbers in the AHL were better than his numbers in college. So Iskhakov definitely gives a semblance of a late bloomer, a player who can potentially make their way to the NHL. And this is definitely something to keep an eye on. Some other players who were top prospects back when Ruslan Shakov was one of the Islanders' top prospects. Again, the Islanders' prospect pool, when he was one of the better prospects, was incredibly weak. I think he was ranked number 2 at one point behind Mathew Maggio. So I figure, why not talk about Mathew Maggio? He is a player that we really have not talked a lot about on this channel. So I thought I'd kind of talk about where he's been. Mathew Maggio's development really seemed to stagnate last season for the Bridgeport Islanders. And as much as I want to say, hey, it was a bad team, it's not all his fault, you're 22 years old, like if you believe you're an NHL player, it's time for you to step up and play bigger minutes in the AHL. And after putting up 27 points 2 seasons ago, last year, he only put up 19 in the same amount of games. So a big step back for Mathew Maggio, really disappointing. I don't think this is the end of his road. Again, this is a player who is only 22. However, when we talk about all the forwards who are going to be competing for a role on the Islanders roster next season, we talk about Callum Ritchie, players like that. Pierre Engvall is another player who has an NHL contract who's going to be trying to stay in the NHL and not go down to the AHL. I think it's going to be really difficult for Mathew Maggio to crack this lineup. We'll see what happens. I definitely can see him getting games next season, especially if there are injuries. But again, if Callum Ritchie is in the AHL, I also don't believe that Mathew Maggio is going to be the first call-up. And another player we have to talk about, because this is a player, it doesn't have a picture actually on his hockey DB, a player that you guys ask a lot about in the comments is Alex Jeffries. And this is another player who I think some people wanted to see last season. He is a year older than Mathew Maggio, but in recent years, his development has been a bit more linear. He spent 4 years in Mamaroneck College. Then his first season in the AHL, he only played 12 games at the end of the year, put up 7 points, and then last season he put up 29 points. At this point, I would say between the two of these players, I would probably lean towards being a little more excited about Alex Jeffries. He has a bit more size. I think he's a player who has more potential to play a lower line role. And in addition, when it comes to Jeffries, he didn't have that step back. The first year he played in the AHL, that was not a full season. And then putting up 29 points on the Bridgeport Islanders is solid. It's not great, but especially when considering that Mathew Maggio took a huge step back, definitely at this point leaning towards Alex Jeffries being the better prospect. Although I will say, out of the three of these players, I think Ruslan Iskhakov has the highest potential of becoming an NHL player. Even though he is older, he's just shown those steps in development. While I think there's potential for Alex Jeffries, I don't know if Mathew Maggio has. He still has time, but at this point, that's my opinion on him. Let me know in the comments what you think about these three players. Out of Ruslan Shakov, Mathew Maggio, and Alex Jeffries, who do you think is the most likely to be an NHL player? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. I'm your host. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest.